The following program may contain subject matter and language suitable for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
And welcome back to episode number 8 of the Meltdown. I'm Norm.
I'm Jeff.
And Jeff, I got a joke for you.
All right, shoot.
Or it's a riddle.
It's a riddle, okay.
Okay, I thought it was a pun. Mm-hmm. Then I went joke, and now I'm thinking riddle.
All right.
What do orange juice and Ted Bundy have in common?
They both loaded with sugar.
It could be, but the right answer is they're both serial killers. Oh. Get it?
Yeah, because you don't put orange juice in
No,
your cereal.
no. The story is...
Well, you can, but...
You can, but it's awful. So today we're going to profile some serial killers for you. I don't know if it's going to help us get into the mind of the serial killer, but we're going to be looking at them. So we're going to be looking at pictures of these guys while I'm talking about them.
All right.
We'll have some interesting stuff there. Plus, Lou Saracino's here to give us his take on serial killers. Not sure what he's going to say, but you never know what Lou's going to say. And then for our stupidness, we're going to look at some very simple things that actually stopped serial killers. Stupid things they weren't considering. So, Jeff, why don't you take us to our first spot?
Okay, I think it's time for a Meltdown fun fact. Actually, okay, let's do it again.
Sure, let's have more than one, because we
Okay,
have
yes,
about
I know,
10 today.
Yes, yes, okay. Well, coming up next, okay, that's okay. Yes, thanks, Norm. Now it's time for Meltdown fun facts.
All right, today we're going to be going inside 10 serial killers. Here's a little bit of an introduction for you. Serial murder is defined by the FBI as 2 or more killings separated by a span of time. A majority of serial killings are sexually motivated, according to the FBI. Serial murders are relatively rare. Fewer than 1% of homicides during a given year are committed by serial killers. What do you think of that?
No, that seems to be where I thought the stats were. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, as long as we don't disappoint you. All right. So we're now going to profile 10 serial killers. Jeff, we're going to put their pictures on the monitor, okay. And you at home will have these on your screen. Let's begin with David Berkowitz. Mm-hmm. David Berkowitz, nickname Son of Sam. Number of confirmed victims, 6. Years and location, 1970s New York City. Here are some characteristics. Initially claimed a neighbor's dog was possessed by an ancient spirit that commanded him to shoot people. The dog owner's name was Sam. Berkowitz later said the dog story was a hoax. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. Arrested on August 10, 1977. Pleaded guilty to murdering 6 people and sentenced to 25 years to life for each murder. He's currently incarcerated at the Shawangunk Correctional Facility in upstate New York. And you know, when you look at this guy, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be common for all the serial killers we're profiling. You look at this guy, something ain't right.
Yeah.
Like something's off,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. For me, it's mostly in the eyes. There's just something.
I wonder what he's looking at.
I don't know. He's checking someone out. Okay. Moving on.
How romantic.
Our next serial killer, the infamous Ted Bundy. Mm-hmm. Ted Bundy. Mm-hmm. Number of confirmed victims, unknown. Confessed to more than 24 murders before he was executed, but he may have been linked to additional slayings. Years and locations, 1970s in multiple states, including Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Florida. Characteristics of Ted Bundy. He preyed on young women and sometimes lured victims by pretending to be injured. Bundy has studied psychology in college, worked as a suicide hotline volunteer while at school, and served at one point as assistant director of the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Commission. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. Arrested for the final time on February 15th, 1978. He had been previously arrested for murder in Colorado, but escaped from custody before being captured in Aspen a few days later. Months later, Bundy escaped again, prompting a nationwide manhunt. While a fugitive in Florida, he killed 2 college students and a 12-year-old girl. Bundy was apprehended a third and final time in Pensacola in a stolen car. He was convicted on 3 counts of murder and sentenced to death in the electric chair. He was executed on January 24th, 1989. And again, Jeff, I mean, you just look at the picture, something ain't right with this guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and he was apparently really, really charismatic, which I think is another trait for a lot of serial killers because they can somehow lure their victims.
Right.
Right. All right. So now we're going to go to a pair of serial killers.
Okay.
Angelo Buono Jr. and Kenneth Bianchi.
Okay.
Angelo Buono Jr. and Kenneth Bianchi. And I believe Kenneth is on the right. Kind of looks like Mr. Brady. It's kind of scary.
I wonder if he's an architect. Now, Greg, never look at your album while you're driving.
That's right.
Just keep your eyes on the road, Greg.
So the nicknames for these guys were the Hillside Stranglers. Number of confirmed victims, at least 9. Years and locations, 1970s, Los Angeles and Washington states. Some characteristics about these two. Buono and Bianchi were cousins who posed as police officers to trap teenage girls and young women, some of whom worked as prostitutes. Bianchi claimed that he suffered from multiple personality disorder, but later admitted that he faked the condition. Buono opened an auto upholstery shop and was not a suspect until Bianchi was caught, confessed, and identified his cousin as his accomplice. They call those people rats in the mob. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. Bianchi was arrested on January 12, 1979. Buono was arrested on October 19, 1979. Bianchi was arrested in Bellingham, Washington, as a suspect in the murders of 2 college students at Western Washington University. He pleaded guilty to the slayings in Washington and confessed to 5 of the Los Angeles murders. He was sentenced to 5 life terms for murder and 1 additional life sentence for conspiracy. Bianchi is incarcerated at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Buono was arrested at his home in Glendale, California, the same day Bianchi admitted he participated in 5 of the Hillside killings. Bianchi testified during Buono's trial. Buono was convicted of 9 murders and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He died in prison in 2002. So, you know, this is really rare, Jeff, I believe, the serial killers working together. This is the only people I know of that were working together.
Right.
So that's pretty crazy. All right, moving on. We are now going to study the profile of a Juan Corona.
Juan Corona.
All right, Juan Corona. Number of confirmed victims, 25. Year and location, 1971, Yuba City, California. Characteristics about Juan: a farm labor contractor. Corona was convicted in the stabbing deaths of 24 workers. His 25th victim was shot. During a 2011 parole hearing, he confessed to killing the men. Corona, who was 77 and suffering from dementia at the time of the hearing, described his victims as alcoholics who had trespassed in the orchards. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. He was arrested on May 26, 1971. Corona was arrested after a neighbor reported suspicious activity in a peach orchard. Police found 25 bodies buried in shallow graves and orchards surrounding the Feather River and traced the bodies to Corona. 4 victims were never identified. After being convicted in 1973, Corona was sentenced to 25 life terms in prison, but an appeal led to a new trial in 1982. Corona was again convicted at the second trial and sentenced to 25 concurrent terms to 25 years to life. He died of natural causes on March 4th, 2019. So that's actually just this year.
Yes.
He just passed away this year. And what's interesting is, I didn't know that. You know how sometimes you get notices, or, I don't know, the radio stations or the news stations will often broadcast, oh, so-and-so died, and we never heard of this guy. I wonder if that was intentional.
I don't know.
Like we didn't deserve to know. I don't know.
I've never heard of him before.
No. I've heard of Coronas, though.
Yes, Corona.
And I would never order just Juan Corona. I would order 2 or 3 at least. And in Mexico, at this place called the Cheeky Monkey, where Coronas are $1 US a beer, you order a bucket of them.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, and now another name that we've all heard, Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, number of confirmed victims, 16, although Dahmer confessed to 17 murders where prosecutors lacked evidence to convict him in the additional killing. Years and locations, 1970s to 1990s, primarily in the Milwaukee area. Some characteristics about Dahmer. A former chocolate factory worker, Dahmer picked up young men at bus stations, bars, shopping centers, and other locations. He got them to visit his apartment by offering them money to pose for photos or by promising them alcohol. He drugged them and strangled them. He ate parts of at least one of his victims and kept the remains of others in his apartment. That's kind of creepy. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. Arrested on July 22nd, 1991. Dahmer was apprehended after one of his captives escaped and went to the police. Still wearing handcuffs, Dahmer shackled to one of his wrists. Charged with 15 counts of murder, he pleaded guilty but insane. A Milwaukee jury ruled against Dahmer's insanity claim, and he was sentenced to 15 life terms in February 1992. Dahmer pleaded guilty to a 16th murder in Ohio and was sentenced to an additional life term in May 1992. He was beaten to death in prison in 1994. So there you go. Not a great way to go, but one could say it's kind of like karma, right?
Yeah, karma.
Anyway, moving on, we are now going to profile a serial killer by the name of Lonnie David Franklin Jr. Okay, Lonnie David Franklin Jr., if you look at his picture, he's probably not someone you'd ask to babysit your children.
No.
His nickname was the Grim Sleeper. Number of confirmed victims was 10. Years and location, 1980s to the 2000s, Los Angeles. Some characteristics about Franklin. Franklin targeted prostitutes and female drug addicts. Franklin was called the Grim Sleeper because he was believed to have stopped killing for more than a decade before he began a second murder spree during the 2000s. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. Arrested on July 7th of 2010, undercover Los Angeles police officers obtained a sample of Franklin's DNA from a leftover pizza slice and matched it to the killer's DNA. He was convicted of slaying 10 people and was sentenced to death in 2016. He is currently incarcerated at San Quentin State Prison. So I guess he was sentenced to death, but he hasn't been granted death. Is that how you say it? I will grant you death. Anyway.
I don't know if that's how it works.
This next one is, to me anyway, just the most bizarre fucking guy on the planet.
Okay.
John Wayne Gacy.
Okay.
So again, Jeff, I ask you to look at this picture.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there's, I know it's a mugshot in this case, and, you tend to not be in the happiest of moods if you're getting a mugshot, but...
Or a passport photo. Well, you can be in a good mood. You just can't look like you're in a good mood.
That's
if you're
right.
getting your
That's
passport
right.
photo
It's
taken.
not allowed.
Look like you're not in a good mood when you get your passport photo taken. Like you don't want to be there.
Yeah. And now, so this guy, John Wayne Gacy, number of confirmed victims, 33.
Okay.
Years and locations, 1970 Chicago area. And some characteristics about Gacy. A construction company owner who moonlighted as a children's party clown. Gacy abducted young men and boys or lured them to his home. He was twice married and divorced with 2 children. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. He was arrested on December 21st, 1978. Police investigating the disappearance of a teenage boy discovered the remains of victims in a crawl space under Gacy's house. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection on 33 counts of murder, executed on May 10th, 1994. And you know what? There's been books, films made about this guy. In fact, I auditioned for a movie made about this guy.
Right.
What do you think? Could I have played him? What do you think? Come on.
Yeah,
I'd have to get rid of the goatee.
Yeah.
And I'd have to get some hair.
Yeah, you know what? You could play him. You've got the.
I've got the dead eyes.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to compare you to.
The right answer was no. All right.
Okay, well, it was difficult for me to say yes for sure, Norm. Okay. So therefore, the fact that I had difficulty saying yes, you could play him
exactly.
for sure.
I appreciate that, Jeff.
No,
I appreciate that.
Couldn't play. Did you actually audition for that character? Though?
Yes.
Wow.
I did, yeah. And it was a roadside stop. I was pretending that my car was broken down, and this guy pulled over to help me, and I basically went to my trunk, grabbed I guess a tire iron, and over the head with it. Didn't get the part. So obviously I don't look like him. All right, moving on, please. To Randy Stephen Kraft. Yikes. That's all I'm going to say. Randy Stephen Kraft. Number of confirmed victims. He was convicted of 16 murders in Orange County, California, but linked to at least 29 additional slayings nationwide, according to prosecutors. Detectives found a notebook in Kraft's briefcase that contained a list with more than 60 entries. Prosecutors said the journal chronicled Kraft's killings. Defense attorneys argued the diary included ambiguous entries like New Year's Eve, referencing events unrelated to murder. Years and locations, 1970s to 1980s, California, Oregon, and Michigan. Some characteristics about Kraft: a computer consultant, he picked up young hitchhikers on the interstate. He targeted men with military backgrounds. Arrest, conviction, and sentence. Arrested on May 14th, 1983. Kraft was pulled over by a California Highway Patrol for weaving, and officers found a dead body in the front passenger seat. He was convicted on 16 murder counts and sentenced to death. He is incarcerated awaiting execution at San Quentin State Prison. Yeah. Does not look like someone that you would just trust when you first meet them.
No. I have my doubts.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Samuel Little. Samuel Little, number of confirmed victims. He was convicted of 4 murders. In the spring of 2018, Little confessed to 90 murders during an interview with FBI crime analyst and James Holland of the Texas Rangers. Investigators have confirmed 60 of the confessed killings. The FBI describes him as America's most prolific serial killer and had asked for the public's help in identifying more of his victims. Years and locations, 1970s to 2005, in Arizona, Arkansas, California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Nevada, New Mexico, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. It's a long list.
Yes.
But you could say he was well-traveled. Some characteristics about this fellow. A nomadic drifter, Little began traveling state to state and committing crimes after leaving Ohio in the late 1950s. Little often targeted vulnerable women involved in prostitution and addicted to drugs, kind of a recurring theme. A one-time competitive boxer, Little would punch and stun his victims before strangling them. Without bullet wounds or stab marks, most of these deaths were attributed to accidents or drug overdoses. His arrest, conviction, and sentence: arrested on September 5th of 2012 at a Kentucky homeless shelter. Little was extradited to California for a narcotics charge. Once Little was in custody, the Los Angeles Police Department matched Little's DNA to victims in 3 unsolved homicides from 1987 and 1989. He was charged with 3 counts of murder, and in 2014, he was convicted and sentenced to 3 life sentences with no possibility of parole. In 2018, last year, Little was extradited to Texas, where he pleaded guilty to the 1994 murder of Denise Christie Brothers. Little is currently serving 3 life sentences on California convictions, and in 2019 received 2 additional sentences for 15 years to life for the murders of 2 women in Cincinnati. We are on our last serial killer profile, and this guy's name is Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK killer. Now this guy, again, not that one should be in a good mood while getting a mugshot, but I'd stay out of this guy's fucking way in a heartbeat. Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK killer. Number of confirmed victims, at least 10. And years and location, Kansas, 1970s to 1990s. Some characteristics about Dennis: a churchgoer, Cub Scout leader, and married father of 2. Rader worked at the home security company ADT, and he later became a code compliance supervisor in suburban Park City, Kansas. Two of his earliest victims were women who worked at an office with him. He also murdered a co-worker's husband and 2 children. In a letter found folded into a book at the public library that was found months after the first killings, Rader described one of the crime scenes and suggested that he should be called BTK, short for Bind, Torture, and Kill. He continued mailing cryptic letters to the media and the police prior to his arrest. And arrest, conviction, and sentence. He was arrested on February 25th of 2005. Rader was caught after he sent a floppy disk to a TV station in response to reports speculating that BTK was dead or in jail because it had been more than a decade since his last victim was found. Police traced the disk to a computer at Rader's church and found that his DNA matched the killer's. Rader pleaded guilty to 10 murders and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms. He is currently incarcerated at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. So there you go. 10 serial killers, profiles, not a happy show so far. Pretty grim. But I mean, these are facts, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to present the facts. So, Jeff, why don't you take us to our next segment? And then we ask you to stick around for our last segment because we're going to look at some really stupid things that got these people caught. So go ahead, Jeff.
All right, it's time for a Meltdown Minute with Lou.
Hello, serial killers. So when Norm sent me the topics for this, and he's like, you got to make this funny. I was like, yeah, boy, nothing quite as funny as serial killers. What the fuck? So in looking into it, here's a couple of things that I've learned that may be helpful to you. 1, if you meet somebody with 3 names, walk away. That's one of the biggest ones. 2, if someone invites you to their place and they offer to massage you, but they're using Seasonal, that's a problem. Don't go to that guy's house again. I find that amazing because somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, who didn't just kill the people but ate them, which means that if you went to Jeffrey Dahmer's house, in his crisper was probably a foot. How's that not a tip-off? Hey, Jeff, you want me to come for dinner? Yeah, that'd be swell. What are we having? Foot. That's what the guy would say. And you'd still go? Come on! At some point, are we just not skimming the pool? You know what I mean? Are we just not? Like in olden days, when we were cave people, a mastodon would take those guys out. You see what I mean? But now, maybe it's a public service.
Thank you, Lou. And now it's time for Meltdown Stupidness.
Okay, from the what? Me worry department? Stupid stuff that stopped a serial killer. Quite a few have been caught while committing mundane crimes like a traffic violation or a car theft. Ted Bundy driving erratically in a stolen car comes to mind. So does Randy Kraft, who had a dead body in his passenger seat when the highway patrol stopped him for suspected drunk driving. Joel Rifkin was also transporting, but saw his license plate. You'd think if you'd had a corpse with you, you'd at least try to be inconspicuous. Some killers who believe they won't get caught keep items from victims, have a victim's photo, or keep a descriptive journal. Sometimes they even return to a scene. Helicopter surveillance caught Arthur Shawcross having lunch over his latest victim. It's kind of like an odd picnic.
Yes.
I bet you there were tons of ants.
Probably.
Yeah. Some of them keep not just tokens, but the actual victims. Human remains on private property pointed to Larry Bright, John Robinson, and Herb Baumeister. When Dennis Nilsson moved from an apartment with a garden to an upper floor flat, he had no place to burn or bury his victims, so he flushed decomposed chunks down the toilet. The clogged plumbing led to his place, where he still had some parts. Keeping the dead close also did in John Wayne Gacy, Reginald Christie, and Jeffrey Dahmer. There are serial killers who overlooked a minor detail. Maury Travis took a map from a website before sending it to reporters, and computer logs yielded his address, while background noise on a recorded phone call eventually nailed team killers Judith and Alvin Neely. Albert Fish used traceable stationery to write a letter to his victim's mother. Dennis Rader, having eluded capture for 30 years, launched a cat-and-mouse game with police. He trusted them when they assured him they couldn't trace his computer disk. They could. Henry Landrew killed wealthy women for their money and incinerated the remains, but his frugality left a telling pattern. When he purchased tickets for their visit to his estate, he got a round trip for himself, but one way for each of them. There's also just plain stupid. Peter Goebbels dropped his ID at a crime scene, a dead giveaway. While Neville Heath signed the hotel register for a room in which he'd left a victim bludgeoned, bitten, and murdered. Danny Rowling said his name on a recording found in a bag at a campsite near 3 recent crime scenes. Dr. Harold Shipman forged a patient's will in his favor, causing a surviving relative, a lawyer, to take a good hard look. More obvious was the blood on Earl Leonard Nelson's hair when he went to a barber in a town where a murder had just occurred. Bobby Joe Long thought a rape victim liked him, so he released her. She didn't. Peter Curtin took a woman to his house, raped her, and let her go. She remembered his address. Over drinks in a restaurant near the hospital, nurse Walter Wagner and her accomplices joked openly about killing patients, and a doctor overheard them. Some killers, full of themselves, bragged to the wrong person. Melvin Reese told a friend that he thought murder was morally permissible if committed by a superior person. The friend passed this sentiment along to the police. Charles Schmidt and Richard Biggenwald took friends to see corpses. Their friends weren't ready for this kind of loyalty. So there you go. Some really stupid things.
Yes.
And you know what? I didn't include this in our facts today, but a lot of these serial killers have been... there's an article that profiles their IQ ratings, and some of them are kind of in the 80s, but then you've got a few that are quite intelligent.
Right.
But it's... So, I mean, intelligence has nothing to do with it. It's just this, I don't know, are you born without a conscience? Are you, I don't know. What is it? What the hell is it? What is it, Jeff?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and speculate it because, obviously, I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answer to it. You'd have to ask somebody that
studies serial killers.
I mean, we know it's immoral. We know it's wrong. Yeah. But that's not what you're asking.
And maybe that's the thing they don't know. Maybe they think, again, like, they're superior, or, these other people don't have a right to live. They don't have a morality measure.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, so as I say, it's immoral, it's wrong.
Yeah.
You're right.
We agree.
Perhaps they don't get it.
Yeah.
So we're sort of stating the obvious.
Okay, now next week, we're going to have some fun with fake news.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Fake news.
What is fake news? Do we really know what fake news is? Are there different types of fake news? Well, there are. And we're going to tell you what they are next week. Plus, Lou Saracino is going to be here with his take on fake news. And then we're going to look at some stupid headlines. We've done this before. I think we did this back in our 2nd or 3rd season, where we looked at some newspaper clippings, just really badly worded, or just... You have to see it to believe it. So come back next week. Until then, I'm Norm.
I'm Jeff.
And this has been a killer episode of The Meltdown. Bye-bye.